really had the opportunity to explore how the characters of World of Warcraft are given their voice. Can you describe what all goes into the recording process? For example, what sort of preparation was required to set up each recording session? On average, how long did the sessions take? And how are the voice actors introduced to their characters?
Lots of really, really good questions. World of Warcraft, well, I'll start by saying I do get the pleasure of working on Diablo, StarCraft, and World of Warcraft. The way we approach World of Warcraft is unique because our creatures are so unique. World of Warcraft is all fantasy. So, you're talking about approaching this from a perspective of trying to figure out what does a 6-foot purple dragon sound like? What should a flirtatious female orc sound like? So there's not a lot of reference to draw from, so the team, as a starting point, has to kind of get together and brainstorm what kind of voice and what kind of attributes we want to hear. We hear it in our head, but how do we articulate that? And how do we decide what a dragon should sound like? So there's a lot of kind of early brainstorming and discussions going back and forth as to what exactly we want, because A, we have to be unified, but B, we have to make sure that we're true to all the other creatures that currently exist in World of Warcraft. So we kind of have to, we can break new ground, but we also have to be aware of the ground that currently exists.
On average, how long do the sessions take?
Really hard to say. There are so many different kinds of characters and so many different scenarios. Our lead characters, let's say our player characters, we're introducing new worgens and goblins. Those sessions could be 4, 5, 6 hours. There was an 8-hour session that we did for the male worgen. So obviously the characters that you hear more in the game are going to take a lot longer because we're going to spend a lot more time making sure every read is right. Characters like our dungeon bosses, probably, let's say about an hour or so, because they usually have just a couple of lines, kill lines, spell lines, and that. But what they really have to focus on are their sound effects. They're attacking sounds, they're getting hit, they're killing, they're dying. So that really takes time. But in essence, I would say the average World of Warcraft session, depending on the character, is about an hour to 2 hours. And our characters that are obviously much more involved in our overall game are probably 4 to 5 hours.
How are the voice actors introduced to their characters? You spoke a little bit of the prep work, but do the actors get to interface with the writers at all, with the creators of the quest or the dungeons that they're portraying? Right,
they do. They are, I'm probably going to geek out a lot through this conversation, but my World of Warcraft actors are a special breed of people. I mean, really, aside from auditioning, they'll audition and they'll see a quick overview of the character, but more or less, these are grown adults, male and female, coming into a room. Okay, now you are a very upset purple dragon flying across the sky. What does that sound like? So you get a rare breed of actor who can, without very much preloading or advanced information, can come into a room with no specs, not a lot of guidance, and then just tap into what this orc or dragon or crabby little dwarf sounds like. So to be honest, they don't get a whole lot of advanced information. They are just creative, amazing individuals that we can bring in who just dive into their inner fantasy geek and enjoy every minute of it. So it's pretty fun.
Pulling off that question and line of talking,
sure.
Working with so many talented voice actors must have been an incredible experience, and I imagine that they were able to entertain both in the studio and out. Do you have any hilarious stories or moments to share?
Well, there's so many, just sitting here, I sometimes when people ask me this question, I get it frequently. I'm almost speechless because there are so many moments of... When you work with an actor in the booth, and you're there with your character specs and your script, and they come in, and suddenly they're there with you in front of you, and you're guiding them, and they suddenly sound like this creature that you want, this mythical, otherworldly creature, I kind of feel like you're tapping into a universal energy that's bigger than all of us. Suddenly you're in the room, and suddenly there is an orc in the room with you, and it's just amazing. And there's so many great moments. One thing that it was really exciting for this chapter, which I'll kind of throw in here really quick, this chapter of World of Warcraft, is the fact that before all of our casting and recording was done here in LA, but for Cataclysm in particular, we really wanted to kick it up a notch and find new talent, new energies, new voices, and we went to New York. I spent 5 weeks in New York casting and recording most of the voices you're going to hear in Cataclysm. So a lot of great moments for me. For example, a lot of Broadway actors voiced characters in this game. A lot of the lead roles were epic, really talented Broadway actors. So there were very serious moments. For example, there is Prince Liam Greymane, who is one of the Worgen royal family. And he has to do this kind of Braveheart, epic speech. And when he ended, half of us were in tears, half of us were silent. And the writer, to get back to that part of the question, we did have the writers on the phone with us throughout the entire process. And it was silent, and the writer just said really quietly at the end of it, "I would follow you into battle any day of the week." Because we were all so moved. So you have these, even though it is kind of a fantasy, otherworldly game and primary colored and fun, we have very serious acting happening in this game and very dark, heavy, emotional moments. So there were so many moments where I just sat in silence and couldn't believe I was fortunate enough to witness this performance and fortunate enough to watch, for example, the Worgen royal family appear in front of my eyes. There's a couple other really funny ones. We were lucky enough to bring Garrosh Hellscream back in, leader of the orcs, and that was a funny moment. There's a line, he does this whole other kind of Braveheart speech in his orcish tongue, and at the very end, he does this really big, "For the Horde!" epic, loud, and the writers were on the phone, and it's silent. And then suddenly, out of nowhere, you just hear, "Hell yeah!" Like, you could just tell everybody involved here at Blizzard, the writers were so geeked out because Garrosh was really on the phone with them, and they just were delirious with hearing that voice on the speakers. So it was pretty epic.
I can't wait to actually hear that in the game.
Oh, it's great.
Based on your description.
It's great. It's really magical.
Now, tapping back into one of your previous responses, you noted that you recorded New York this time as opposed to locally. This obviously was a huge undertaking for everyone involved.
Absolutely.
And based on everything that you've said, it seems to be a larger project than anything we've ever tackled before. How did the Cataclysm voiceover sessions compare to those recorded for classic World of Warcraft, as well as the Burning Crusade and Wrath of the Lich King expansions? Do you have any interesting facts or statistics that you can share?
Yeah, it was crazy. It was funny. When I was prepping for this interview with you, I was thinking about it, and I remember when we first started talking about Cataclysm and the scope of it, and the amount of characters, the amount of content. I literally remember sitting at my desk looking out the window one day going, I have no idea how we're going to do this. This is so huge. How is this going to come together? But it did. This, in every possible way, is a much bigger, more in-depth, I want to say heavier, I don't know if that's the right word, but really, definitely, we're diving into a whole new facet of World of Warcraft, both with the storyline, which is really, a big departure for us and really quite intense, both with the characters and we've got some great characters with amazing character arcs coming out. So for us to have to record double to triple the amount of what we did for Wrath of the Lich King was an insane undertaking, but all of us knew that if we could persevere and push forward and not go crazy, that what we would have in the end would be an epic gaming experience for our fans. And after having lived through all the weeks of recording and directing with all the different characters, it's just a really great thing for all of us, from the writers, from the dialogue editors, from myself, to sit back and realize that it almost killed us, but what we did is really kick up the acting performances and the storyline to a notch that is not been seen before in World of Warcraft.
So it's absolutely unparalleled, the amount of voice acting you'll experience.
Totally unparalleled. Unbelievable. And what I love so much about Blizzard, and not because I work here, and what I love about the team, is that no matter who the character was, no matter what the voice was, no matter what the setup was, we took every single line of dialogue very, very seriously. So, we might have, I need to go find a character who only has 2 lines. It was never thrown away. Every single line that was recorded was touched by myself, by the writers, and analyzed and really worked on until we got exactly what we wanted. So not only was the scope bigger, but I think we spent a lot more time on every single line that we recorded. So in that way, it was definitely more epic.
Did any unique or unexpected character personalities develop during those recording sessions, since you took every line so seriously?
Yep. There were 2 characters / actors that really... Well, let me put it this way. It's one thing when you are working with a team and creating the character specs, all right? You're writing out what you want, what the voice is going to sound like, da-da-da-da-da, you've got the artwork. It's one thing when you have that, and then you hold auditions, and then you hear that voice, and it's all well and good, but then you have the recording session. And then you have people, and even, I'm such a nerd, I'm getting chills talking about this. You have people who walk in that booth and make it their own. And 2 that I love so very much are race leaders. We have 2. That would be Trade Prince Gallywix, who's the race leader for the Goblins, and also King Gen Greymane, who is the leader of the Worgens. We knew Trade Prince Gallywix was going to be a fun character because he's kind of a little bit, mafioso, a little bit huckster. But this actor came in it's funny. I think anybody who listens to radio knows that when you see the person behind a voice, it's never what you expect.
Yeah.
And so there I was in New York. Trade Prince Scallywix was one of the last people we were recording. This guy comes in kind of in gym clothes, just kind of looks like he just maybe ran to the studio. I don't know, just not what I expected. He got in the booth. He just took these attributes and made it his own in such a way that I remember directing him, and when he was done reading his first batch of lines, I literally couldn't breathe. My jaw was on the floor. Like, he got behind that mic, and we kind of were talking about a little bit of Sopranos energy, this kind of thing, and his whole body changed. This whole kind of thuggery thing. His hands changed. His face, every aspect of his physical energy changed, and he became this kind of, which sounds weird, this kind of mafia goblin, if you will. Mm-hmm. And he just... and the writers, too, when they were on the phone, they've been writing the lines, so they're hearing it in their head. But all of us were in shock because he took our goblin race leader to a whole new level that none of us could have predicted. And made him come to life in a way that none of us could have predicted. And just made this character so fun and so, I use this word because I'm goofy, kind of juicy, meaning really meaty. You really want to know who this trade prince is. Where did this goblin come from? What's his backstory? So again, you get this character that we all knew was going to be cool, but by finding the right actor was far cooler than we could have ever expected.
Literally made him three-dimensional.
Oh my God, in such a way. Now I'm waiting for the action figure. I must have an action figure with a button on the back that I can hear him do his lines. Like, that's how much I love him.
I would buy it.
I know, right? And the other one was King Gen Greymane, leader of the Worgans. This actor, when I was in New York, in the evenings I would see a couple Broadway plays, A, for fun, but B, to kind of spec out any new talent. In this play I saw this actor that was on the stage really... how do I even explain? I could tell in this particular play he was in, he had to play in one evening 39 different characters.
Wow.
Something crazy. And his range was epic. His talent was epic. So I thought, I've got to get in touch with this guy, which I did. Long story short, he became King Gen Greymane. And I don't know how much content I can talk about. I'm not going to go into the ins and outs of it, but it's a really heavy role and very emotional. And a character, Trade Prince Scallywix is kind of comedic. King Gen Greymane is very serious. And when he came in, again, we had the artwork, we had the specs, we had the script, but he just came in without any advanced prep. He was given almost nothing and brought Gen Greymane to life in such a way that, again, we were speechless. We just couldn't believe that we had this Worgen royalty in front of us. And he made it his own in such a way that now this character, too, is somebody else I want to hear more from. That I really want to know who he is. How did his life get like this? I want to know more about the Worgen curse. How did he deal with it? Because the way he made the character his own really mystified all of us. I can go on and on. I'm going to stop right there. I really geek out. This just makes me so happy. Anyway.
Now that's talking more on the sincere and serious element.
Right.
Are there any funny outtakes that you happen to come across during the recording?
Yeah, if anybody, actors are a special breed of people. They just are, these are people that have to go into a room, and how I explain actors to people who don't know, it's like, they go into a room and basically have to get naked in front of you because they're really going to be vulnerable and expose themselves. And because of that, you tend to find actors who are quite animated, friendly, goofy, extroverted. I say all that because if you can do a session and not laugh till you're almost crying, it'll be rare. There's one outtake that I loved. There's a female orc named Agra, and this actress is so talented in so many ways. But she was waiting for us to get water or get a coffee or something, just started to do a kind of seductive soliloquy, shall we say, for Garrosh Hellscream in an orc voice. And so to hear a flirtatious and very aggressive female orc talk to Garrosh in a adult manner was quite funny, and there's just so many things that if only we could put that in the game, but alas, we can't.
Do you think outtakes will ever become available for players to hear? I know it's something they've requested on many an occasion.
Yeah, we might, because a lot of the outtakes, although they're funny, you also have a situation whereby this actor is now in that role and talking and kind of channeling your character. So a lot of times they'll have lines that you didn't even expect or anticipate, and they're writing